This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good evening, Rabbi Isai. Tonight we endeavor to do Daf Chav Beis. Because of the scheduling, Baruch Hashem, Simchas every night, we're going to try to do the whole blot. So here we go. Says Gemara, Bar Barte de Rabbi Yanai Saba, Salkmei de Rabbi Yanai Saba. Bar Barte, the son of the daughter of Rabbi Yanai Saba, Rabbi Yanai the senior, came before Rabbi Yanai Saba. So Rabbi Yanai Saba's grandson came to him, and he wanted to matter neder. Amrlei ilu hava yadat de paschen pen kasrach umeshamshemin umemashmishin ba'ivadach. If you would have known that they open up your notebook, they open up your book of reckoning, and they investigate your actions, they analyze your acts. Mina dart, would you have made an eder? In other words, there's an idea. There's a very important idea that when a person makes a neder, what happens is Bezdin, the Bezdin Shamala, investigates a person's actions, because it's like a person's making a declaration. I'm making a neder, so I'm better than everybody else. So would you have made the neder? Amar loi. He said, no, I never would have made the neder. V'sharya. And Rabbi Yanai Saba mattered the neder. Now, what is this considered? Is this l'chayra is a Pesach. Amar Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba said, my kra. What source in the pasuk reflects this teaching that if a person would have known that, what source is there that a person's actions are analyzed for making an eder? We learn from the pasuk, V'achar Nedarim levaker. After Nevarim, to search, to investigate. Now, what does that mean literally? After you make an eder, you need to get kapara. But we're darshaning it that after Nedarim levaker, you are investigated. The Bezdin Shamal investigates you. V'afa gav the pasuk Rabbi Yanai lei, even though Rabbi Yanai was poiseach for his grandson in such a fashion, anan loy paschin alei baha. We do not open up a Pesach in such a way. Says the Gemara, v'loy paschinan bahada achranaisa. And we also don't open up a Pesach in another case. Here's another situation where we don't open up a Pesach. Dama Rabbi Chana Rabbi Yochanan. My Pasach le Ram Gamliel hu Saba. Rabbi Chana said name Rabbi Yochanan. What did Ram Gamliel, what was he poiseach for an old man? He said, Yesh boite kemad karois cherev. There is someone who makes a word, someone who makes an utterance. It's like a sword that pierces. The lashon chacham marpe, and the tongue of the wise, it heals. What does that mean? Somebody who makes a neder, he really should be pierced by a sword. Why should he be pierced by a sword? Because it's a premature obligation. Who says he'll be able to keep it? The only thing is, the tongue of a chacham is able to hear it with a Pesach. So therefore, a potential Pesach is, you tell someone that by making a neder, you should be pierced by a sword. If you would have known how critical the chachamim are of your neder, would you have made such a neder? If the person says, no, I wouldn't have made such a neder. If I would have known, then in fact, that could be a Pesach. However, that is another example of a Pesach that we don't use. And here's a third example. We also don't make a Pesach out of the next example. The Tanya we learned in the Brayso of Nasan Omer. Hanoider kilu bana bama. One who makes a neder, it's like he built an altar that is not permitted. V'amakaima kilu makar love carbon. And if you fulfill the neder, it's like you brought a carbon on it. There's an amazing maral. The maral, I believe, says in Chidush Agados that why is making a neder like building a bama? because what's a bama? You say you're better than every Jew in the world. Every Jew has 613 mitzvahs, but you need to add unauthorized mitzvahs to... you need to, so to speak, separate yourself from the rest of the Jewish people by doing more than everybody else. And why did you have to make a neder? There aren't enough mitzvahs in the Torah. 613 is not enough. You have to add another mitzvah. So you're basically separating yourself from the unit of the Jewish people. And if you actually fulfill the neder, in a way that's even worse. Because not only did you say you're going to make yourself different than the rest of the Jewish people, but in practice you've actually separated yourself from the rest of the Jewish people. V'hamakaimai ki'ilu makrav olav karban. Bereisha paschinan. The first case we do use as a Pesach. We tell someone, if you would have known how critical the Chachamim are about making a neder, would you have made a neder? Would you have made a neder if you would have known that the Chachamim consider you like building a bama? If he says, no, I wouldn't have made it, then we are mata the neder. Why? Because we believe him. We don't say, no, he's embarrassed to say, no, I wouldn't, he's embarrassed to say I would have done it anyway. Why is he embarrassed? It's not the end of the world to build a bama. Building a bama is not a capital offense. But b'seifa, by telling him that if you fulfill the neder, then it's like being makrav a carbon on a bama, which is an isser kares, that's an isser achi of misa. So if we ask him, well, would you have made the neder anyway, even if you would have known that the halacha is that you're chayiv misa? So we can't trust him if he says, no, I wouldn't have done it anyway, because he's embarrassed to say I would have done it anyway. So in the Reisha, we could use that as a Pesach. In the Seifa, we don't. In the Seifa, it's a machlekes. Abai Amar Paschinan. Abai says, no, in the Seifa, we could still use it as a Pesach. Rava Amar Loi Paschinan. Rava says, we cannot use the Seifa as a Pesach because we can't trust you that you would have done it, that you would not have done it had you known. Rav Kahana, so according to this version, to make a neder, to make a Pesach out of Hanoider, Ki'ilu, Bana, Bama, that we could use as a Pesach, but to make a Pesach out of V'hamakaimoi, Ki'ilu Hikr V'alav Karban, that we cannot use because we can't trust the guy that he would indeed have refrained because maybe he's lying. Rav Kahana Masni La Lahashmaita Bahadin Lishna. Rav Kahana taught this whole episode in this text, in this language. Rav Tavyumi Masni Hachi. Rav Tavyumi learned it a little bit differently. How did he learn it? B'seifa loy paschinan. In the Seifa, everyone agrees we don't use it as a Pesach. Bereisha and the Reisha Abai Amar Paschinan. Abai says we could use the Reisha as a Pesach of Hanoider Kilo Hikrav Alabama. Rava Amar Loi Paschina. Rava says no, we cannot use it as a Pesach. The Hilchasa, the halach is Loi Paschinan. We do not use it as a Pesach. Loi Bereisha, V'loi B'seifa. So in other words, this is going like the version of Rav Kahana, that in the Seifa everybody agrees Loi Paschinan, and in the Reisha we paskin like Rava. Okay, just give me one moment. I'm getting my Gemara that marks the Rans. Let's see the Ran on Daf Chaf Beis. Here we go. Top Ran. De Paschen Penkasech ume mashmeshen be'oivadech shamitoich shehu noidar. The fact that you made a neder nira shehu machzik atzmai kechassid. It looks like you hold yourself like a righteous individual. Shalo yikashal b'nidroi, that you will not stumble in your neder. Mitoich kein, and because of that, minas shamayim poitzchen pinkais, the heavens open up your ledger. of Zechu Yosef, or Memashmishin B'masav. So, very interesting idea that someone who makes a neder, you cause yourself to be examined carefully in the Bezdin Shamala. Now, in a way that's very frightening. Does that mean that when someone observes a chumrah and considers themselves a besser mensch, that causes their portfolio to be examined more carefully? Is this something which is particular to Nedarim, or is it particular to any chumrah? Because technically, if you observe a chumrah consistently, it is an neder. So even in a way it's academic, right? I'm asking, well, does this apply to someone who observes a chumrah, or only to someone who makes a neder? But if you observe a chumrah, then that's a nedrei mitzvah, right? So that might be, where I come from, in the yeshiva where that I was raised, chumros are not encouraged. You mean it's to help our judgment in a way, right? That's what you mean? Yeah, very nice. Good, very nice thought. In other words, in general, Slabodka frowned upon chumras for many reasons, and this might be another reason. In other words, you think you're being stringent. Now, I remember I once asked one of the Rabbeim, well, let's say you're at a wedding and you want to learn at the chuppah. So it's a chumrah. Most people are not learning. So is that a chumrah? He said, no, that's not a chumrah. There's a mitzvah in the Torah, v'higisa b'yom v'layla. That's a biblical command to learn whenever you're able to. Learning is not a chumrah. Tznios, modesty is not a chumrah, it's a midah. Okay? So, chumrah is when there's a view in halacha, which is a normative view that something is mutter, and you want to take upon yourself the stringent view when others are not observing it. So this might be something to think about. Are you really worthy to so to speak, make yourself be considered a besser mensch? That is not the subject of tonight's share. I just was thinking about it. Okay. Amar Rabbi Abba, Maikra, Klamer, Dahachi hu kida Amar le Rabbi Yanai. What pasuk indicates the teaching of Rabbi Yanai that by observing a neder, your repertoire is examined? Va'achar nedarim levakar, achar shenadar adam mevakar masaf. V'loi paschin bahadin achrinai. So we also don't use the following Pesach. The Amar Rabbi Rachana, ein paschin bezois ha'acheres. Ein paschin bezois ha'acheres. Sha'amar Rabbi Rachana. We also don't use the following Pesach that Rabbi Rachana said. Lefi shemitoch sha'omer loy shechata kol kach sharoi ledakra b'cherev. If we tell you that you've sinned so egregiously that you are worthy to be pierced by a sword, yesh lachosh, we have to be concerned. Sha'omer shemischaret, we have to be concerned that the guy will say that he regrets it, afal pishen mischaret, even though he doesn't really regret it. Now, the Ran says, one who makes a neder is like he built a bama. It means at a time of an Isser Bamais. Skip about 14 lines. Someone who fulfills the neder, what's wrong with fulfilling a neder instead of being materit? Then kilu hikrev al oisay bama karban v'chayv misham shchutei chutz. Bereisha paschinan. Bereisha the Braisa, in the Reisha the Braisa the Reb Nasan, the Hanoider Kilo Bana Bama, one who makes another is like he built a Bama Paschinan. That kind of Pesach we make Shalafisha Eno Avera Gedola Kolkach, because the sin is not so egregious. If he doesn't regret it, he won't be embarrassed to say, I would have done it anyway, because he's not committing such an egregious sin. Beseifa Shal Oisa Braisa, and the Seifa of that Braisa, Dahainu hamakaimoi kilu hikrev aleha karben. Rava amar loy paskinan. Rava says no, we don't use it as a pesach di kalamechash. we're concerned, Shama mitoch choymer aver, maybe out of the stringency of the sin, afal pishena mescharet, even though he doesn't really regret it, mitoch shum esbayesh, because he's ashamed, yeshaker loymar, he'll lie and say shum escharet, that he regrets it. The Gemara continues. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Yosef, afananami tanina. Rav Yosef said, we learned this also in a Mishnah. No, I'm sorry. A little bit, I skipped. V'loi paschinan baha nami dishma. We also don't use the Pesach that Shmuel used. Amar Shmuel, afal pisha mekayma nikra rasha. Even though, if someone fulfills a neder, he's called a rasha. That also we don't use as a Pesach. Amar Rabbi Avo. Rabbi Avo said, Maikra. What pasuk demonstrates the opinion of Shmuel? V'chisechta lindar, if you refrain from making a neder, lo yia b'chachet, it won't be sinful. So it says by Nedarim, chadal, v'yolev chadala, ksiv hacha v'chisechta lindar. It says here, if you will refrain from making a neder, uksiv hasam sham rishaim chadlu raiges. There, the wicked stop their anger. So it says chadal by Nedarim, and it says chadal by the wicked, because as angry as wicked are, they do not get angry in the grave. Right? That's scientists did a study, and they found that even big balei kas, once they're buried, they don't have so much kas anymore. It's a proven fact. They did a lot of studies on this. That when someone is buried in the earth and there are worms eating up his flesh, that's very hard to be angry. Now we go to the topic of anger. Not only because the Monday Shiur was about anger. And Rabbi Pinchas said a chiddush from Rabbi Grumblat that not just straight out anger is considered kas, but even if somebody gets annoyed and even if somebody gets frustrated, that's also a semblance of anger, and that even that a person should try to overcome. Shkoyach. Okay, now we're going to talk about the sugya of kas. Not only because we spoke about it Monday, but also because kas is very important to keep at bay, especially in preparation for the Yom Tov of Pesach, like we mentioned from the Hiliga B'nai Yissaschar, since it says about the Karm Pesach, Kol ben nechar lo yoichal bay, anyone who's an idolater cannot partake of the Karm Pesach, and since anger is like being Oved Avodah Zarah, before the Yom Tov of Pesach, a good thing you need to do bedika on is kas. So here we go. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef said, Afana nami tanina. We also learned in a Mishnah that someone who makes Nedarim is considered a rasha. We're almost up to the kas Gemara. It says, Kinidrei risham lo yamar klum. If somebody makes a neder like kosher people, it's like they said nothing. Kinidrei rishaim. If somebody says they're making a neder like wicked people, then nadar benazir v'karban v'shua, then it is a valid neder by naziros, karbanos, and shuas. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rav Yonasan, Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, stand there Rav Yonasan. Kol ha-koyes, kol minei gehenim shaltim bai. Anyone who gets angry, all types of purgatory rules over him. Shenemar, like it says, v'hasar kas milibcha, remove anger from your heart, v'haver ra mibesarecha, and remove evil from your flesh. Ve'ein ra ela gehenim, evil refers to the purgatory. Shenemar, koil payal Hashem lema'anehu, everything God created for His sake. V'gam rasha, even the wicked person, liyoim ra, for the day of evil. The day of evil is the day of Gehenim. So, if someone gets angry, all kinds of Gehenim rule over him. Now, what does it mean, all kinds of Gehenim? Gehenim sounds like the opposite of an ice cream store. Nowadays, if you go into an ice cream store, there are all kinds of ice cream. When I was a kid, there was basically chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate and vanilla mixed. Now, if such an ice cream store would open, they would be closed by the Department of, I don't know what, okay? There's so many different types of flavors of ice cream. They have power of ice cream. They even have fleshik ice cream, No, they don't. But they have all kinds of varieties of ice cream. So what? They're varieties of Gehenna? What does that mean? They're varieties of Gehenna. What kind of varieties of Gehenna? So let's see the Ran. The Ran says, "V'yalef chadal chadal dehacha hachi kamar b'chisachta lindar lo yeh b'chachet." If you refrain from making an nedarim, you will not have a sin. But ha'im loy sechtal. But if you don't refrain, yeh b'chachet, you'll have a sin. Kenidrei rishayim nadar benazir b'karban of Hashavua. Alma noida rasha mikri. We see it. That's one who makes nedar is called a rasha. Kol adam hakoyes kol mine gehenim shaltamai. Says Iran. Lefisha akas maviyah lichbar be'ikr. Anger brings you to be koifer be'ikr. So this is already davar yafa be'itai. The rasha in the Haggadah is koifer be'ikr, and the rasha in Masechta Nedarim, the Baal Kas is koifer be'ikr. Can you imagine? Somebody who's a Baal Kas, who'll ultimately deny God. Kedamrin Parak Rabbi Lazar the Oirek, the Meshaber Kel b'chamasa, if you break Kelim in your anger, yeah be'einecha ka'oved avodas kachavim. So if you get angry, it will bring you to be koifer be'ikr. So all kinds of Gehenna will rule over you. I remember there's a rush here. 1 second. Take a look in the rush. Kasha. I have part of my rushes rubbed out. You see the rush? Kol mine Gehenna shaltamai. Kasha. What's the next word? Kasha lagufai. Oh, very good. It's bad for your body. Kilu haya nidain b'chol mine paranius begehenim. Basically, anger is so detrimental to your health, to your body. It's like you're being judged with all kinds of punishments in Gehenna. I think that's, medically accurate. Anger is really unhealthy. Inami, what's the next word? It's rubbed out. Mitoich kasa, I guess. Bali de avera. U'moishlim alav gehenim. If I'm not mistaken, I heard from Rabbi Miller that every type of sin has a different type of gehenim. So since since kas will bring you wherever it leads you, it could end up leading you to all types of sins. So therefore, kol hakoyes kol mine gehenim shaltamai. Okay. Weiter in the Holy Gemara. Not only that, hemorrhoids will take control of you. God will place in you there leiv ragas, a heart of anger, eyes that long, nafesh, and a pained soul. And it says that in this context, an angered heart, and ezo davar shemachal soinayim, what causes the eyes to yearn for better days, umardiv es hanefesh, and causes pain to the soul, have a omer zet tachtoiniyos. So basically, anger causes hemorrhoids. Yeah, doctors, what do you say about that? Is that one of the causes of hemorrhoids?
High blood pressure.
High blood pressure, stress, agitation. You're all verklempt, and you know what being verklempt could cause. Okay, so weiter. Ula b'miskel Ard Yisrael. Ula, when he went up to Eretz Yisrael, islavu le'trein b'nei Chozai badei. He was accompanied by two people from Chozai. Amar lei le'ula yas avdi. I'm sorry. Kam chad shachted l'chavrei. One of them got up and shechted his friend. Amar lei le'ula yas avdi. He said to Ula, did I do? No? Fatin gerech, did I do the right thing? Amar lei in. Yeah, you did great. You should have uncovered the place where you cut his throat. Amar lei inu parla beis hashchita. You should have uncovered where you shechted him. Basically, Ula was afraid for his life. So he said, good katin. Ki asel kamed Rabbi Yochanan Amar lei, when Ula came to Rabbi Yochanan said, Ula said, Dilma chas v'sham achzike yedei ovdei avera. Maybe I strengthened those who sin. Amar lei, Rabbi Yochanan said, no, nafshe chitzalt, you saved your life. Now, I don't understand this. If I'm not mistaken, in the Rabbeinu Yoina, don't you have to be moiser nefesh, not to be machnif, right? One of the arba, where is it? In the arba, in the Shari Tshuva, one of the arba kitim she'ena mekavlan pnei shchina is kat chanifim, yeah? And don't you have to, doesn't Rabbeinu Yoina say you have to give up your life for that? Which, by the way, is a chidush that you have to give up your life for that. But according to Rabbeinu Yoina, wasn't sure how to learn this Gemara. Anyone have a Masifta Gemara there?
I have the Safa Brura, yeah.
What's Safa Brura?
Like the condensed Masifta, but it's very similar.
Yeah, check there if they ask on Rabbeinu Yoina that how is Ula allowed to do this? Do they have like the Kovetz Beurim in the back?
No, it has the commentary on the bottom, but not in the back.
Check over there. I would imagine somebody's got to ask this question. Anyway, Katama Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was bewildered. Michti, Ksiv v'nasan Hashem l'chasham leiv ragas. It says Hashem will give you there a heart of anger. That's only in Bavel. Bevavel Ksiv. And Ula was in Eretz Yisrael. And that means the guy with him was in Eretz Yisrael. So how could a Yid get angry in Eretz Yisrael? Anger is only for Chutz La'aretz. Rabbi Yochanan couldn't understand the story. I thought you only get angry in Chutz La'aretz. So Amar Lei, Ula said, no, don't worry. Because at that moment, Lo Yavrina Yardena, we didn't cross the Jordan yet. So that's how they got angry. Okay? That concludes Chaf Beis Amud Aleph, but don't go anywhere. No. Once you're grandfathered into the rest of the blot. Sorry. Okay, let's see on Chaf Beis Amud Aleph, finish the runs. Upara Blei Beis Hashchita, Sheyamas Mahar, you should have uncovered where you slit his throat so that he would die sooner. Nafsha chitzalta, Shalmalei Kein Hoya Hargecha. If you wouldn't have praised him, he would have killed you. Katama Rabbi Yochanan, V'nasan l'chasham, Leiv Ragas, Bebavel Ksiv, V'heich Gavar Kasoi Shal Oisoi Ben Mechuza Kokach, Larages Chavera. How could someone kill his friend in Eretz Yisrael? By the way, that's very interesting. Meaning Rabbi Yochanan said it's impossible for someone to get angry and kill someone in Eretz Yisrael. I mean, that's a little puzzling. Is that really true? There are no roitzchim ever in Eretz Yisrael? Hahu shaitolei avinon yardena ve'evar yarden loy niskadesh lahavas ha'omer, was not sanctified to bring the omer. And that is a chidush. Ulamixas kedushais. Fine. That completes the runs on Chaf Beis Amud Aleph. Now we're ready to do Chaf Beis Amud Beis. Okay?
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.